Hello pilots and passengers. It has been a really long time. I just can't believe how long it's been, but that's besides the point. I'm sat back on my bedroom floor again, back like the old times like I used to do. Like the title of the video says, I have autism. To some people that might be a surprise, but I'm pretty sure to most people watching is probably not a surprise at all because of the way maybe I act or the way that I am. I don't really know. It's a recent diagnosis. I did get tested and go through all of the whole procedures and all that, and I got my diagnosis, I think it was last month, so it is very recent. I thought I'd make a video about the process, my thoughts and feelings and anything, opinions and stuff on it. I hope that this video might help a few people who are feeling like they could be autistic and they're a little unsure about like the process and they're looking to get diagnosed. It might help you guys. But I don't know, because I'm just a beanhead talking about being autistic, so who knows. Around April 2020-ish time, I'd like to say, sort of early pandemic time, I was really anxious all the time. My anxiety, which I've suffered with basically my whole life, ever since I was little, I've really struggled with just anxiety, and it's a combination of social anxiety and just anxiety over things that just don't really make sense, like buses and travel and stuff like that. But last year I got in touch with the doctors and I said, look, something's clearly not right. I'm still stressing out over stuff and it's really bad, the symptoms that I'm getting from being so anxious, like panic attacks, and just it was awful. So I was diagnosed as having social anxiety but also a panic disorder officially, and I ended up getting CBT therapy, so cognitive behavioural therapy, involved using a app and a website. I can't remember what it's called, but it was a long online course for over a period of a few months, and it made me challenge my anxiety and some of the things that I do and teach me how to cope with what I'm going through and the things that stress me out, like my phobia of buses. But I really struggled still, and a lot of it wasn't resolved. I was able to manage it, but it still felt like something wasn't quite right, particularly because of lockdown and all of this shambles with the C-19. It meant that I kind of forgot how to socialise and talk to people, and I know a lot of people have been going through that, but it was painful. Like, I just forgot how to exist as a human being. And the thought of doing certain things I just didn't understand how to do. Small talk, for example, or in a shop buying something like that. I just didn't get it, and it caused me a great deal of like stress, and I'll get so worked up over it for no reason. And to me that was a little strange, and I know I spoke to it back with my mum and she thought the same thing, that there's a chance potentially that I could have autism. And I'm looking back on certain things I did when I was younger, I constantly struggled with other people, like as in socialising with other people, making friends. And I did make friends when I was younger, but they were usually all boys. I found boys so much easier to get on with, I still do. All of my friends mainly now are boys. I do have some friends who are girls, but they're in the same situation as me, as they prefer boys to girls, just how it is. Boys are so straightforward and easier to get on with for me than girls, because girls are just so complicated. I just don't understand what the hell's going on in their brain. Some of the things that they come out with, I just think, oh, too complicated, just falling out all the time usually and all that sort of thing, and it's just not for me. Whereas boys, you can just go to school and play Ben 10, and that sounds so much more exciting to me, especially when I was little, than it would be hanging around with girls who just gossip all the time. But yeah, when I was younger, I used to feel like I was very different, and I struggled to fit in with a lot of people because I just didn't really understand people, and I didn't like the same things that they liked as well. But because I felt so different, I kind of thought that I had to try to make myself fit in on purpose to be like them, so that I wouldn't get as maybe noticed as much, or that I wouldn't seem as weird. This involved basically sort of mimicking a lot of the things that they did in the way that they talked and the things that they said. I do remember doing certain things like that when I was at primary school, a little bit less though to an extent because I was a lot younger and it didn't really matter. I just wanted to play Ben 10 and play Doctor Who with my friends at playtime and stuff like that. Versus at secondary school, I would watch how people acted and sort of copy some of the things that maybe they said, or the way that they said certain things, just so that I felt like I wasn't being weird, if that makes sense. But maybe it tried to sort of teach me how to be, because I think I was a bit, I don't really know how to describe it. I mean, at the end of the day, people just saw me as like a nerd at school. I was a teacher's pet, I was a nerd, as were my friends nerds. I was into computer games and stuff like that, and I still am. But when I was at school, I would really try to insert, depends on the person really, context. If it was around my friends, it wouldn't really matter as much, I could just be myself. But if it was around other people, I would just try to fit in a little bit more, so to speak. So my mum, again, has thought similar sort of thoughts that maybe I could be autistic. She got in contact with a place where I am called The Retreat, which is a charity that deals with like mental health stuff, but also does like autism testing for kids and adults. And my doctors referred me to The Retreat, which is where I started getting my testing. And I forgot to mention, this did follow when I did one of the brief autism tests you get from the doctors, and if you score higher than, I think it was like, I don't know, it might be 30 or something like that, then you get referred to testing. I think I scored like 34, 35, I can't really remember. So I did get referred. So the testing that took place, because of the C-19 and all the lockdowns and all this stuff, it took place over Zoom. The entire thing was on Zoom from start to finish. And it was over a period of, I'd like to say, like 4 to 5 months or so. Initially, the first call I had was with a psychologist, where we talked about my childhood growing up and some of the things that I did that made me think that I could be autistic, or she was just trying to see whether it's worth continuing the process of me getting tested for autism, or whether it was clear that I was just neurotypical. Again, it was a lot of things talking about when I was younger, so talking about my interactions with other children, my thoughts on sort of like small talk and stuff like that. And I hate small talk, I don't understand the point of it. I think it's just pointless, and I just feel it's a waste of time, and that is just how I feel about things. And obviously to probably someone else, that's quite a weird thing to say. We talked a lot about people, and I just don't get on with people. I just don't understand people. They absolutely confuse the life out of me. She asked me about my friends at school, and I do have friends, and they're all boys, like I said, and we talked a bit about that, and it was going in depth into certain things that maybe could mean that I was autistic. The second call I had was with a man who was, I don't think he was a psychologist, I can't really remember, but we did a lot of different activities to determine whether I was autistic again. And it was involved reading through this book that I've seen a lot of people who have been tested for autism have to go through, which is this book about flying frogs. And you have to describe what the frogs are actually doing. You actually have to tell the story, because there's no words in the book, it's just pictures, and you have to tell the story, which I think I did alright at. I'm saying that as if it's right or wrong, but there is no right or wrong. But I just did it as I did it, like how I would sort of see it and say it. I just said it as it is. Flying frogs, magic, I don't know. Involved also, again, talking about my likes and dislikes and really getting into that, and my relationships with other people. One of the main things that I think stuck out was he asked me, like, what do you dislike? Like, what is something you really dislike? And I just said, well, people. And I sort of had to expand, like, well, I know it sounds really harsh, but I just don't like people. I don't like being around people. It's just difficult. And it's like, well, why would you spend time in situations that make you feel difficult? And that's people. I don't like most people. I don't want to be around most people. I mean, I do small talk again, but it's tiring. And I come home tired. If I have to socialise with people, it makes me feel really tired and moody, because it's not fun to do. But I will do it. I had to learn how to do it through my mum, who forced me to do small talk with people when I was getting my hair cut and stuff like that. So I've had to learn how to do that. I just said I don't like people, and it's most people, but to an extent of that I still have to have contact with people, like human contact, to feel sane, if that makes sense. But like I said, I do like some people though, don't worry, I do like some people. Like, I like you guys, that's fine, but, and my family, and my friends and things like that, and obviously my boyfriend. But other than that, you know, it's just like people just seem difficult to deal with, so I would rather just avoid them. I talked a little about like sensory things as well, so that was again sort of looking at my childhood, but also now, is there any like sensory things that I struggle with? For me, sensory things, I don't like bright lights, but to be honest, most of the time it doesn't bother me. But there's some days I wake up where and just feel like a bit sensory overloaded and things feel worse than they are. So like lights seem a bit brighter, noises seem really loud, like watching the TV and I have to turn it a lot lower than it actually needs to be, usually, if that makes sense. I also struggle with certain feelings of like textures and stuff, like certain clothes. Like when I was growing up, I couldn't have a certain type of trousers because they would make too loud of a swishy sound and it'd feel weird as well. I don't know, there's this type of plastic that's sometimes in books that if you put your nail on it, it actually makes me feel physically sick. So I think that's another weird one that I have. Again, I'm a bit funny with food. Like when I was younger, I always had to eat certain foods, the same food all the time, and I think I still have that now. Obviously, doing the carnivore diet is a bit different because you only eat meat, but I feel like my mentality's got into that so bad, or so much, not so bad, but I'm so stuck in the routine of it, and swaying from that like makes me feel a bit stressed. So I like it to be nice and easy and simple and have a routine there. Again, routine is one of the big things. I love to have routines and plan everything out like so precisely, but to the point where if anything changes, I will get really stressed and anxious about it. I hate change so much. I'm a lot better than I used to be in terms of I can deal with it and manage it, and like if I talk to people about it and get a bit of reassurance, then I don't feel as bad about it. I'm more mouldable now. I'm not like a massive stress head. I'm still a stress head about things, but not as bad as I used to be. If things have to change, they have to change. But yeah, like other sensory things to add, like I have to sleep with a sleep mask on, usually if I'm by myself. If my boyfriend's around and sleeps here, then I don't really need to have a sleep mask. It's weird, like, I don't know, it's just like a comfort thing, I guess. I also have this thing, I used to have this thing, I don't have it as much anymore, where I pull out my hair, like dead hair, roll it into a ball and play with it, and then just leave it around the house, which obviously annoyed the hell out of my mum. But now I've got like some things to just fanny around with all the time, like the fidget toy stuff. I like this one more, it's like the infinity cube or whatever. So I just play with them, and I don't play with my hair as much, I guess, unless I'm extremely stressed, which hasn't happened for a very long time. Around the call with the man, my mum had a separate call with another psychologist, just again going more in depth. Both my parents were there to talk about it. After that, it was waiting to get my results after they compiled the report on me. So the third and final call was about my diagnosis. Do I have autism or do I not? And it was with the psychologist I had at the start, and she just turned around and said, look, yes, we think you have officially autism spectrum disorder, which is what it's called, or ASD, and explain the reasonings why. Another thing that I do is echolalia, I think it's called, where you repeat certain phrases that people say in the sentence and you don't realise you're doing it, but autistic people do that more often. And she just sort of said a lot of the things that I've said make it very obvious that I do have autism. A lot of my experiences, a lot of the things that I do, obviously they watched my behaviour when we were on Zoom, and the way that I interact with people, interact with my mum, interact with the person on the call. And they said, yeah, you have autism, definitely. Some of the things that I did involve looking towards my mum when I'm needing support when talking to the person on Zoom. Again, there's a lot based on what I've said, especially with my childhood, that I won't know what they deemed as autistic until I get my report, which I still haven't received. I will get the report soon, and I kind of want to share some of the bits from it in a video or something like that. Basically, she said, to the average person, you would not know that I was autistic. Not that it's obvious whether someone is or isn't autistic. Again, that's up to debate or whatever, I don't really know. But because I'm really good at social masking, so that's sort of like covering up your personality and who you actually are to fit in, which a lot of autistic people do, particularly autistic women. So my thoughts on it explains a lot about why I act certain ways, why I sort of think the way that I do, particularly like fearful of social situations and change, and the way that just my head works, that I guess I look at the world in a very different way to other people. Not that that's a bad thing, just neurodivergent people, again, look at the world very differently because their brain is wired so differently. I am happy that I've got a diagnosis because then I can get extra support if needed in the future, which is helpful, especially with like jobs and things like that. When I first got the diagnosis, I'll be honest, I was very happy, but then I felt very overwhelmed by it in a way of that I kind of wish, obviously you wish you got diagnosed earlier, because I feel like if I had it when I was younger, in my childhood I missed out on a lot of things that I wish I'd have done because I was scared to do it. But in reality, it was because of just me being wired differently meant that I struggled to deal with certain situations, so I just avoided them completely. And it got put down to being shy, it got put down to being anxious, when I think in reality part of it was being put down to being autistic. But I can't, you can't turn back and relive the past or worry about stuff like that because it's the past now. It just means that I can ask for more help or whatever in the future and make sure that I actually do the things that I want to do and not feel ashamed or scared of doing it. And I don't need to like mask all the time and pretend that I'm alright if I'm struggling. Again, I was a bit unsure or like nervous about how maybe people might see me differently because I have autism, like maybe my friends, but again, I just think, well, that's a daft thing to think because I don't think they're going to treat me any differently. Besides, like, some people I'm friends with, I definitely think are probably on the spectrum a little bit more than others. And I did worry, like, what would my boyfriend think about me in a way that, knowing that I have autism. But then I spoke to him and he was like, well, I'm not going to treat you any differently and I don't think of you any differently because it's who you are. And I still love you and stuff like that, which is, that made me feel a lot better about things because it's just realising that a lot of the things that I'm going to worry about are perfectly normal to worry about, but I don't need to worry about them. Because if anyone has a problem with me having autism, then that's on them. They choose to get upset by it, not me. In a way, just looking at the world differently, I guess, is both a blessing and a curse. Like, I see the good in everything, or that the world is a lot more, that there's a lot more to the world, and I can see the more detailed parts of it. But again, I guess that's a curse because you get over fixated on certain things and maybe focus on some of the bad than the good, or get so fixated on particular things and stress about them. I don't know. It doesn't change who I am, and it's not going to change what content I create or how I act with others. I'm still me, and it's just part of who I am, and that's that. I'm still a beanhead, but a beanhead who might every now and again need a little push or a shove or a little bit of extra support or a pat on the back, a bit of extra reassurance to know that I am doing alright and that I'm on the right path, which is fine, and I will get that. So for anyone wondering if they're autistic and whether it's worth getting help or getting tested and you think you might be, just go for it, because it opens a lot more doors to you and it helps you understand a little bit why you think the way you do. Do you have autism? Do you suspect you have autism? Let me know down in the comments. I'd like to sort of start a bit of a discussion about it and see what you guys have to say about it. And if there's any other videos about autism or my experiences that you'd like to see, again, leave me comments down below. I'd be more than happy to share things about me and some of the embarrassing stuff that I've done when I was younger, or some of the stuff I actually said during my testing and all that sort of thing. But yeah, just let me know. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful, blessed day, guys. Love you all very much as usual. If you'd like to support the channel, again, please do subscribe and share this video with others. All links to supporting the channel further, including the coffee page, are down below in the description box. Have a wonderful day, guys, and fly high, fear less.